Good morning, and thank you for coming to the Finance Committee meeting of, what day is today? May 13th, 2020. We'll cover the curriculum and instruction budget and various topics related to that. I will explain that this is being recorded and we are using Zoom video as we are abiding by the mandates of the state regarding school opening. I will pass it on to Scott Everslog. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to share my screen here. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience as I manage that. Today, we'll be presenting our curriculum instruction budget as part of the Finance Committee meeting series. This presentation is a little bit different to some of the other presentations, and I'll go into some of those nuances as we progress. But just want to start by introducing our team who have contributed to the creation of our budgets and planning for 2020-2021. I'm joined by Dr. Gaudioso, our Director of Elementary Ed, Ms. Nancy Conchimessa, our Elementary STEM Supervisor, Dr. Lorraine DeRosa, our Supervisor of Elementary Literacy, ELD and Federal Programs, our Mr. Jason Lilly, our Secondary STEM Supervisor, and Dr. Leslie Pratt, our Secondary Humanities Supervisor. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention Mr. Mark Klein, who spent half the year with us as the interim Director of Elementary Ed and was helpful in construction of some of these budgets and some of our planning moving forward. So when we talk about the curriculum budget and the curriculum experience, we want to think about it from a well-rounded perspective and thinking about how the school district wants to provide an experience for students that is very broad, it's very connected to our strategic plan, it's very aspirational, there's a lot of choice and opportunities for students to pursue interest. In order to do that, there are a lot of budgets that contribute to the fact that we have this in place. It's not just the curriculum budget that contribute to the curriculum experience. And that's reflective in some of the budgets that we've already heard from in the Finance Committee meetings. Ms. Schaefer talked about staffing, and certainly part of our experience is providing favorable class sizes, good student to staff ratios that include specialists and support teachers and opportunities for enrichment. We've heard from Mr. Frazier and the robust technology that we provide for students. K-12, there's a lot of technology hardware and software that we provide for students, and students have exposure to a lot of different devices and technology platforms at their time in Lower Merion. We heard from Mr. Lill about in operations around the extensive budget around transportation and facilities to provide excellent facilities for our students, and a really complex transportation system that supports our curriculum, part of what the experience is, with both on-site and off-site. Students are in the community, they're on field trips, we have residencies, we have a range of extracurricular activities that are all made possible in part to students being able to move effectively. And we heard from Ms. Frazier, who has reinforced our philosophy of having in a very inclusive environment that supports students from all perspectives and backgrounds, from our gifted support and instruction support programs to our special ed nursing and wellness opportunities. We just have a lot of supports in place for students that are part of the curriculum experience, none of which comes directly out of the curriculum budget, but we certainly value that. To talk a little bit more in depth of what I was just sharing, this is a snapshot of what our current full-time employees numbers look like. The numbers that are in bold are numbers that are required by law, positions that are required by law. So only health and phys ed and ELD are requirements. Others are part of our program, things that we valued as a community that we think should be part of a student's experience, but are not necessarily mandated. And you can see even at the elementary level, we have a lot of opportunities and choices for students. We're one of the few districts that has world language in the elementary school. We certainly value that. And you can see numbers at the high school level that are really indicative of what students have chosen to pursue over the years. So our world language numbers, for example, have grown. They're not projected to grow in staffing next year, but they have steadily grown over the last few years. And that's really a result of students taking multiple languages, retaining their languages, staying within that program, and being able to really pursue the world language as part of their program. We have over 200 different course offerings at the high school, so students have an opportunity to create their own path and their own courses based on those interests, and some of the staffing reflects the ability to do just that. So some additional examples of the curriculum experience that go beyond what's necessary. We have some unique opportunities for enrichment and support. I mentioned world language at the elementary level. That comes at an investment of almost 9 FTEs, it's a full-time employees, it's almost 9 staff members, and around $6,000 annually in program costs. We offer our International Baccalaureate program. It's housed at Harrington High School, but is a district-wide program. We commit 1.5 staff members to that program, and that comes at a cost of around $103,000 annually. That includes training, supplies, ongoing professional development for staff of the IB program. We expanded our dual enrollment program this past year to include our University of Sciences program at both high schools. That comes at investment of almost 1 staff member and about $15,000. That $15,000 covers books for our students who are on free and reduced lunch and tuition for those students as well. We offer an extended day kindergarten program that allows for several students in each building to continue their kindergarten day beyond a half-day experience. We have an extensive after-school elementary program where we have enrichment that's offered for elementary students in reading and in math. And we've expanded our one-to-one tutoring program. We are budgeting $285,000 for next year. This year we had $200,000 budgeted for a one-to-one tutoring. We did not necessarily hit that number, mostly due to the closure. But to date, we had $145,000 that we've spent on one-to-one tutoring this year that provided over 3,500 hours of tutoring experiences for students. Part of our expanded opportunities in our program include summer programs. Now, we're obviously in a unique situation with the current conditions for this summer. And we are going to have to make some modifications to our summer programming for this summer. But this does give you a snapshot of what's been budgeted and what we include in our summer programs as a wide range of opportunities for over 700 students to be supported every year in summer school. The programs that are highlighted in red had been budgeted for, excuse me, but that money is not going to be spent this summer on those programs. They're not going to be running in their current form. We're not going to be able to run in-person summer programs. So we are going to be continuing our summer programming, but there are going to be some modifications to that. So, for example, we will be presenting an option for an iteration of SPIES, a version of SPIES to be offered this summer. The $282,000 number is the number that we have dedicated in for this year, and that covers salaries and costs. It doesn't include transportation costs or revenues. We do get some revenues from SPIES annually. There is a tuition component to SPIES. However, around 40% of our students that are in the SPIES program are involved in the free and reduced lunch program, and we do cover costs for those students. So SPIES ends up coming at a cost of about $220,000 to the district every year. The high school summer school program that has $95,000 budgeted is a budget neutral program. That program, we have revenue that covers the cost, but the only SPIES in high school summer school are revenue generating. The others are cost of the district and investment in extended learning opportunities over the summer. And they've been really great opportunities for kids to not only work on supporting their skills, but also have enrichment opportunities to really connect and extend interest. Another part of our experience is connecting or having our students connect with the community and just be out in the community. We have had an extensive field trip experience for students. The last few years, we average around 700 field trips per year. Those include curricular and overnight trips. Does not include athletic trips. This year, we had about 616 trips scheduled for 1920 at the time of closure, and we had to unfortunately cancel 264 of those trips that were scheduled to occur after the closure. But we've also added some other types of field trip / experiences in the community, including our fifth graders were scheduled to go to Lankinoff for growth and development lessons this spring. Unfortunately, that too had to be canceled. And we're proud of the residency that have evolved and developed as a result of our strategic plan. And the residencies are partnerships with local organizations. So we have our students that are involved with the Museum of the American Revolution, the African American Museum of Philadelphia, the Barnes, Junior Achievement, and Lower Merion Conservancy, where we had 43 scheduled offsite experiences for students to attend those locations based on grade. The residency was a guaranteed experience for every student in a particular grade to have both an offsite and on-site experience, and embedded that experience into the curriculum. So we really aligned those partnerships with our curriculum in a way that made sense for students and really developed their curricular experience even beyond the classroom. We hold several events throughout the year. These are just a few. Most of the events we have are, quite honestly, at the high school level or secondary level. There are more evening events, but we have these are some examples of great events. They're highly they're well attended. They involve students, parents, and staff all working together. Our Reading Olympics, Family STEM Night, very well attended events that are hosted on site. We have English language learner family nights for literacy and STEM. And we've introduced recently the first Lego League, which has been a really nice addition to our program that allows students at the elementary level to involve in first Lego League competitions. The costs associated with these are mostly staff and salaries, but there are some supplies. For instance, for first Lego League, there's some supplies connected to events like that, but they're relatively low-cost events for really positive experiences for students that connect with our families on site to really have a partnership with families. And the secondary level, our co-curricular experience is a lot more student-driven and choice-driven. So students have an opportunity to pursue several different clubs, after-school activities, athletic teams. We have over 120 teams that are offered at both high schools. And you can see the costs associated with having an athletic program. We pay about $1 million a year in salaries for coaches at the high school level. Then running a program, we have officials at costs that are around $120,000, and other programming costs to supplies, transportation, and so forth run about $834,000. The athletic program at the middle school is similar, but just there are fewer teams, fewer events, and it comes at a cost of about $375,000 annually. Our clubs, we have 104 different clubs that are offered at the high school. We pay advisors about $775,000 for those experiences. And, you know, we probably have around 39 performances every year at the high school. I mean, everything from our musical concerts to our Amazing Ace competition, to poetry slams and other events that are theatrical productions. And those events are covered mostly by advisor costs and programming costs, but there are some event costs that are associated with those as well, at around $13,000. All of our sports operate on a uniform replacement cycle where we equitably replace uniforms on a 4-year cycle. And then there's some sports that require some additional equipment reconditioning for safety purposes, football helmets, lacrosse helmets, and so forth. And we have our natatorium, our pool at Lower Merion High School that involves a lot of community swim and our student courses, as well as our after-school swim programs. And our natatorium costs us around $135,000. That's staffing, maintenance, and management. That cost did go up a little bit from last year based on some maintenance increase in costs. And now we're going to shift to actually the money that is from the curriculum budget itself. So that we talked about the experience and the multiple budgets that contribute to that experience. For example, I should have said this at the athletics slide. The athletic budget is really part of the building budget, so that the athletic departments each have a budget that helps contribute to that experience. That would not be an expense that would come out of the curriculum budget per se. So our next few slides are really talking about the curriculum budget and the around $1.9 million that we have in the curriculum budget, where that money comes from. And it will be color coded over the next few slides, with blue being indicated as an elementary expense and green is a secondary expense. So starting with the elementary and just breaking down some of these numbers, you can see this is our $629,000 is our budget amount for this year for elementary, 2020-21, I should say, for the elementary level. And you can see some of the fluctuations over time. Our budgets are based on it's a modified zero-based budget, meaning that it's need-based. And so every year we'll assess and predict what some of the needs are going to be for the following year, and then budget accordingly. How much will we need for professional learning? How much will we need for software technology? And a big one in the curriculum department is how much we'll need for textbooks and digital resources. Most of our textbooks and digital resources come together. So they're packaged in a way that when you purchase a textbook for a series, it comes with it a set of digital resources that students and staff can access. And those typically have a 6-year lifespan in which the digital resources are no longer valid. So when you look at the textbooks and digital resources over time, you can see some pretty significant fluctuations. And you see a large number like this, $250,000 in 2017-18. That was the year that we purchased the Investigations series for elementary math. It was a series that required resources to be purchased for every student, K through 5. So you can imagine that was a large expense. We haven't purchased a similar type of series of that volume since, so the budgets have been lower. But we also can predict that 6 years out from that, or 3 years from now, this expense will be expired, and we'll have to pursue opportunities to renew that, so we can anticipate another expense. So we do have an ability to kind of predict what are some of our upcoming expenses, what they will be. So let me go back here. I'm going to speak to each of these three over the next 3 slides. I'll speak each of these three in elementary, and then we'll shift to secondary just to let you know a little bit of what contributed to each of those numbers. So our first is our textbooks and digital resources at the elementary, which is around $104,000. And I talked about the life cycle of books being around 6 years. About $80,000 or 80% of this, around 80% of this budget is about literacy-based books and resources that directly support students. So we have some purchases like the literacy footprints, which is our it's about $48,000. Almost half of this budget is literacy footprints, guided reading kits for students. We also have for like almost $5,000 for grade 5 short reads. We have library books that we purchase every year, around $2,000 in supplemental picture books. And we have about $6,700 in books that support our ELD students, our English language development students. And that includes not only books, but bilingual dictionaries and other books that support our ELD kids, and around $1,500 in supporting books for our EDK, our extended day kindergarten program. Shifting to software and technology, probably a good point to mention that there is some grayness and fluidity between textbook and digital resources and then software and technology. It's becoming more and more blurred, I would say, because a lot of our resources, especially now during this time of the closure, a lot of our resources that we rely on for students are in fact digital, and some of that falls in software and technology, some of it falls in textbook and digital resources. The amount for this budget is $212,000. Some things that contribute to those are some ongoing expenses that we have every year in this category. So some of these expenses are performance tracker, Blackboard, evaluation software. These are platforms that we use for learning management system, for tracking our student data, for evaluating our professionals. And these expenses are part of our budget annually. We divide them out as one third of it comes out of the elementary budget, 2/3 out of the secondary budget, just because there are more staff members at the secondary level, and that's the budgets are a little bit. That's how we divided it out. There's no magic or rhyme or reason behind that. That's just how we have chosen to do so. And there's some ongoing expenses like our DRP, which is our degree of reading power assessment that we do every year that measures comprehensive text for students, and some library resources. PebbleGo and WorldBook Online are library resources that we have every year, expenses for that provide opportunities for students to access some software and technology through the library. We'll have strategic plan related initiatives in each of our budget categories that all drive. An example here is these are all individualized kind of programming that allows students to engage on a very individualized level on some support that they're learning. So Keyboarding Without Tears, Dreambox is our math program that allows students to access online. That's about $55,000 that we spend on this. $16,000 for ExactPath, which is so it's similar to Dreambox, but has a little more individualized for some of our higher grade students. And we have Seesaw, which is around $23,000 as well, and that's the growing part of our strategic plan for our digital portfolio that we've seen students access more and more. And then I'm moving to professional learning for the elementary, and this is our budget for this year is $311,000. A lot of this is ongoing embedded experiences for for staff and their professional learning. So every year at both the elementary and secondary level, we will have teachers that will be engaged in curriculum work. They'll do that in the summer. They'll do that in after-school workshops. They'll do that hand in hand with our specialists and our curriculum supervisors to develop, refine curriculum, create assessments, calibrate and grade writing, review benchmark data, and those are ongoing expenses that are really necessary to make sure that your curriculum is up to date, and is responsive to what some of the data is indicating and some of the recent trends are. We do not operate with on a cycle that would say we revise curriculum 1 year and then put it aside and look at it in every 5 years. We have not approached it that way, and I stand behind that because it's just hard to predict what some of the curricular needs will be too far ahead in advance. We also commit about around $100,000 a year that's shared in secondary and elementary towards supporting our new teachers. And that includes our NTAP program, our new teacher induction program, providing mentors for our new teachers, and we call them buddies, supports for new teachers, but also memberships, professional memberships and conferences for not only our new teachers but for all of our staff. So that's included in some of these embedded ongoing expenses. But the areas of focus for all of this curriculum revision is based on what we are going to focus on as far as student learning needs. And at the elementary, you can see what some of the student learning needs are for next year, with focusing on guided reading, which will devote some resources to committing to either having both PD and curriculum work, but some consultants will be helping us with some of this work with fractions and guided reading, and we have that money that will be committed to supporting students, supporting teachers through these areas of priority. So shifting to the secondary level, and I'll take you through the same three categories similarly. You can see overall that the budget numbers are a little higher than they are at the elementary level. That's mostly in part to, well, a few things. One is anything that we split 2/3 to secondary, 1/3 to elementary. But there are just more courses at the secondary level. There are more textbooks and resources. There's more courses that students take, and therefore there's more resources associated with those. So we'll take you through some of the budgets in the next few slides. So our textbooks and digital resources at the secondary level, we have $527,000 budgeted for next year for that. We have a couple of big purchases in the textbook adoption cycle. We have our 9th and 10th grade global studies textbooks, which is really, all of our 9th and 10th graders at both schools take global studies. So we're talking around 1,500 students. That's a lot of books, a lot of resources. That cost is around $200,000 for that resource renewal. So that's about 40% of this budget for next year is out of that resource alone. But we also have some other digital textbooks and digital resources that are up for review. Psychology and AP Psychology, which is a popular elective. We have a lot of students take both of those courses. That is around $100,000 for just psychology and AP Psych. We have some other courses, IB, Economics and Theory of Knowledge. TOK is IB Theory of Knowledge, which is one of the required classes in IB. Those expenses are only around $4,000 each. It's a smaller course, fewer students. And we're at the liberty of IB's revision, textbook revision, and curriculum revision cycle for much of the training and the textbook replacements, that we have at the IB level. And some of these other purchases we've heard recently at our curriculum committee, the board, that have already been presented. Biology, computer science, the one book, those are all we presented recently, a part of our 2020-21 budget, and those purchases will be early in the year, early in July for next fiscal year. And some of our ongoing expenses are connected to library expenses, for example. So ProQuest for our high school libraries and LibGuides. are part of our secondary libraries. Those are around $50,000 a year expenses for research tools for students in library. We have our DRP at the secondary level, which is that same assessment that we offer every year to assess students' text complexity. And we've heard at CCOB this year about no red ink, in the addition of that as a grammar resource at the secondary level that will be expanding next year, and that pilot has gone well, and that's around a $35,000 expense. Shifting to software and technology at the secondary level. Again, these are platforms that are ongoing, around 2/3 that will be committed to the secondary level. We also have some additional research tools, World Book, for example, as an ongoing expense in this area. And some of our, embedded in some of our programs, is just some replacement software and technology. For example, in our art, digital photography labs and digital labs, we have some computers and cameras that will be that are up for renewal, and that would come out of this budget. We have some strategic plan experiences that are really great simulations and experiences for students that are highlighted here in the middle. Operation Montserrat is our sixth grade simulation that we do at both middle schools, and that's a really neat exercise for students. And that's not too expensive, it's around $10,000 for both schools. We've added Newsela as a resource. It's around a $70,000 expense, and that allows students to access articles and research at a very specific grade level and reading level, but allows students to really access resources at a really individualized level. It's been highly supported by our teachers, and they use it frequently. But a big expense in this category is a 7th and 8th grade digital anthology. So unlike a textbook, it doesn't appear that this will be a textbook at all. It will be strictly digital. That's why it's in this category and not the previous one. But that's around $175,000 expense that we anticipate as part of our 7th and 8th grade literature anthology for ELA. And our professional learning at the secondary level, again, some ongoing expenses around just the revision of curriculum, upgrading of makerspaces, intentionally upgrading units, refining our research experiences and writing prompts that we have at the secondary level. All of this, we have PD funds dedicated to help our work with our teachers on those types of ongoing professional learning opportunities. Conferences are included here and professional memberships, but there also is some, I mentioned the new teacher support at the elementary level. That same thing, it's split here with secondary. And AP and IB training is a secondary expense, and we have about $35,000 dedicated to that every year. Our new teachers, any teacher that's new to teaching AP or IB has to go through training. There also is an IB training cycle. Anytime they do a curriculum revision, IB requires staff is retrained. So even our veteran IB teachers that may be teaching IB English for several years perhaps have been trained multiple times as curriculum has been revised. But some of our areas of focus for this upcoming year include revision. We've added our new English courses. We have some committed money to supporting the development of those courses. The courses have been written, so to speak, syllabi have been created, but we'll continue to partner with Bryn Mawr Film Institute to work on our film and literature course. We have a Voices in African American Literature course that was added, and we'll be working on some race, culture, and identity professional workshops associated with the development of that course. We're continuing our work with Think Like a Historian that's been successful with our social studies teachers, And we have, so we've been working with consultants on that work, and that's been really successful as well. We have about $15,000 dedicated to that. And there's been some growth in our integrated math program. And this year will be our first year of integrated math 2. And then 2021 will be the first year of integrated math 3. So we'll have ongoing work committed to training teachers in integrated math as that program grows. And the science, the state adopted the NGSS, that's Next Generation Science Standards. They adopted those for Pennsylvania, which we are excited about. We think those standards align with our more strategic plan aligned and align with the direction we believe science should go. But with that is going to require some professional development around aligning our courses to those standards and doing some of the course and sequencing revision. So that was a snapshot of the curriculum budget. Just a few slides in summary, just to connect some of the work that we've done, and to remind you that all this work is grounded in the strategic plan. The strategic plan has been, I've said this publicly multiple times, but I really believe it. I mean, I've lived through a few strategic plans in my time and never have I felt as good about a strategic plan, and never have I experienced it drive our work more than this one does. And so it really has not only influenced our day-to-day thinking, but it guides our work in the curriculum department very deeply, as far as what questions we ask when we're thinking about adding programming, when we're thinking about purchasing resources, when we're thinking about hiring. All of these things have been driven by the strategic plan, and so I think it's an area of celebration for the district. And the money that we've invested in the curricular experience being an excellent one has really rooted in us trying to realize what a strategic plan experience can look like for students. A couple things we do to reflect upon how we're using the resources and try to be as cost effective as possible. We're always trying to build our internal capacity with our staff to try to professionally develop our staff to help have job-embedded professional growth. So, for example, we have a new cohort at the Arcadia STEM. We have 15 new staff members that are interested in the Arcadia STEM cohort. That's been proven to be successful over the years, and not only developing our capacity as our elementary teachers to be exemplary STEM teachers, but they also turn around and do a lot of training of the other staff members and write a lot of curriculum that helps provide a great experience for kids. We've been utilizing the findings from the program evaluation to help be more specific around our areas of need. This is a good example. Unfortunately, now the situation with the COVID-19 closures is we're looking to research to help guide us to what areas we can best support remote learning. We'll know that we'll have to be responsive to that remote learning, and that may require us to shift some professional learning priorities in the short term, and we'll be assessing whether or not the effectiveness of those shifts are worth sustaining in the future, and that may drive some additional decisions around professional learning and resource allocation. And we've tried to heighten the examination of the effectiveness of each of those through this time. It's really important to not only look at whether we have all of these digital platforms, not only looking at usage reports and whether we're using them, whether they're actually being used, but kind of assessing the impact on learning and how effective they are. That's talking to teachers, that's looking at student data, that's listening to what students are saying is what's effective. That's an increasing challenge with the complexity of the landscape of software that's out there, but it's one that we're certainly dealing with. And just finally, there's some challenges and opportunities ahead of us that I think are worth celebrating. We know that we'll be embracing these challenges. I talked about the remote learning needs and adjusting some for staff competencies. Programming for a third middle school and will require some additional textbooks, some additional resources, some additional site licenses. but also thinking about what that 5 to 8 experience could and should look like for kids. You've heard kind of some themes about our embracing a growing and diversifying student population, money and resources towards supporting our ELD students. It's our fastest growing subgroup. That subgroup has tripled since 2010, and the numbers are growing rapidly in our ELD population. As the district has grown and we face enrollment challenges, we also have a growing teacher pool that we want to support, retain, and continue to grow. And know that the instructional technology landscape is just an ever-changing one. It's more and more competitive. One of the things we experienced through this closure was a lot of companies reaching out and asking us to try new resources, even offering new resources free in the interim, knowing that if we become dependent on those, there'll be fees in the future for their usage. But in the short term, those have been offered as to districts to try to help manage this closure. And then just connecting finally to our commitment to offering a program that involves a lot of student choice and voice in the program. We take a lot of pride in students having an opportunity to kind of write their own path as they go through school, especially at the secondary level. But we were looking to expand choice and voice at all levels. That's part of our 5-8 committee, that's part of our K-4 committee, and that will certainly be part of the curriculum experience. So at this time, that concludes the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
So if you want to use the raise hand feature, that'd be great. I guess you're muted. Okay, Suba, I have unmuted you.
Thank you.
And she muted herself again.
She's muted.
Wait, it keeps going. Go
No,
ahead.
she's not. She's not muted.
Okay, so first, I think we have Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Good morning. Thank you. I wanted to ask just a follow-up on sort of one of your last points about student choice, and I'm curious how that impacts the curriculum budget in terms of as we provide more student choice to the kids, especially at a younger age. And, you know, in the high school, they have lots of choices of different classes, but in middle school and possibly younger, how that impacts the curricular options and budget.
Sure. So, I mean, an example would be as we propose course offerings. So, like when we proposed the middle school schedule a few years ago, and we proposed the English courses this year, we're proposing additional choice to be embedded in the program. After planning for those and going through board approval, we would then budget for. So we made budget for the addition of the new English courses, a budget for the creation of those courses. And so it's really a response to some of our proposals. So I envision the 5-8 and K-4 committees yielding some recommendations that would be brought forward to the board for consideration, and with the board's approval, embed some of the choice into some of the programming and budget.
But it does create a strain. So here's the way it works at the high school. So you offer new courses, but the number of students don't necessarily jump appreciably, because what you would think is you offer new courses so kids are taking something different, but they're not taking something somewhere else, and so those class sections could be reduced. That's the way it should balance out, but in some cases it doesn't, not enough of a critical number of students leave a particular course in order to balance out the choice that they've made. So by adding more choices, am I making any sense here at all? They just don't leave enough of one particular course to give you the savings that you would expect. That's happened a little bit at the middle school level. I think there was more of a call for, I think it was phys ed, that put some strain on the phys ed numbers. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes. Yes.
And so there was, but I think my recollection was we resisted the additional numbers in those courses to date. Correct? Is that my recollection? Yeah, but that's where you would get you get some stress by offering choice. You get a lot of stress by offering choice at the secondary level because kids end up majoring in science, for example. And by doubling up on those science courses, you get stress in not only the number of staff that you have, but also the facilities that you have, which is why they're over my head in my office now, as opposed to being in the high school. We've migrated chemistry classes and some others into the district administration office, and why we're at least setting the groundwork for that possible need at Harriton now, because that may happen in the future.
Thank you. And I guess I have one other question that's, I think, broader in terms of sort of the whole COVID-19 issue and having to go online mid-year, and then also not knowing where we're going in the fall, because so much is out of our control at this point, and we can plan for various things. And can you speak a little bit to how that works with the budgeting process? Because the time frames are very off, right? You've had to prepare a budget for next year, yet next year is likely going to look very, very different. And I'm wondering if you can speak to how you have to deal with that.
Well, as you saw in Scott's presentation, we budgeted as though summer program is going to happen the summer of 2021. We're taking an expectation that way. We are going to have another finance committee meeting, which will be a regular meeting. It won't be one of these. It won't be a presentation, but it will be to go over our debt service and not our debt service, our fund balance and our capital costs, so that you can see where we're going to have to go in terms of those dollars. We know that we're going to have to prepare for some staff development changes during the summer, but that means a shift of dollars. We knew we were going to be leaning towards a one-to-one program when the new middle school opened up. We'll see whether there's a need for more technology next year, and that'll put a strain on some of our capital budgets. We know that there's going to be some concern about transportation and so forth for next year, but there's really no way to predict what the plan for that is going to be. We'll have to deal with it as we do. This is one of the reasons why we've been, I think, financially prudent in the past with a strong fund balance and a strong surplus, which we've been criticized for. But that surplus and that financial position has allowed us to weather things like the state not having their budget ready on time, and knowing what's going to happen with future legislation. I'm not sure I gave you as direct an answer as you wanted, but it's as close to an accurate one as I can give you.
Jimmy.
Okay, yeah.
Right. It's complicated. I get that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ben Driscoll.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. I just have two questions. I'll ask them both. First, I'm sorry I was a little bit late. Is there any enrollment growth impact in what you just talked about, Scott? If you did talk about that earlier, I apologize, I missed it. I'm getting a sense this is curriculum that we're going to offer classes based on, not based on number of students, but if we have students, we offer them, but any enrollment impacts. My second question maybe is a little bit more farther thinking of, Bob, you had mentioned re-looking at the curriculum as a whole, when we move the 5th grade out of elementary school to middle school, I realize this is again, it's a little out of this is a this year's budget, but looking forward, I don't know if you have any insights for what that might look like 2 years from now when the 5th graders do move. So those are my 2 questions.
You can talk, Scott, first about the enrollment impact on your budget. We do, when we allocate funds to the buildings, which we don't present the building budgets, but when we do allocate funds to the buildings, it is on a per capita basis. So that is based on the number of students. How does it impact the curriculum, Scott?
Well, it impacts it kind of like spreading it a little bit over everything. So it impacts everything a little bit. Like, so we have to pay for additional textbook resources. We have more kids, we have more resources. We have more digital licenses for each student, and we have more new teachers, so it's a little bit more out of our new teacher support. But it doesn't markedly increase the curriculum budget per se.
So going forward to the 5.8, I mean, one of the things we wanted to look at was, again, the expansion of choices for kids in the exploratory program or whatever we want to call it, unified arts and so forth and so on. And so that would have a budget impact going forward. I think the biggest impact I see going forward, not really is curriculum. We're designing a new middle school that's based on where we believe we want to go through a strategic plan and the direction that the district wants to go in. And the nice thing is you can build that into the new structure. We want to make sure that the district is in a financial position in the future to look at the existing middle schools and say, well, if these are the opportunities that are existed in the architecture of a new middle school, how can we retrofit some of those patterns within the existing middle schools? That's a big ticket item going forward because it means relooking at the way we've done that. But clearly, if we're gonna create more choice at the middle school and elementary level, as Lucy rightfully put forward, for example, when we were choosing architects, I had the opportunity to visit middle schools in various parts of the country. And I was intrigued by the different kinds of courses that were offered for those, what I call exploratory programs at the middle school. We visited a middle school in the western part of Virginia. Part of their exploratory programs had to do with agriculture, which I thought were kind of interesting. We visited a school in South Carolina. They had a photojournalism course, which Amy Buckman thought was just keen. Those kinds of opportunities for kids, I think we'd like to expand beyond the courses that we have now, and that will have a financial impact down the road. One of the reasons why I asked Scott to include the extracurricular activities in the presentation, even though that's not part of his budget, is because it doesn't show up anywhere else. And I just wanted the board and public to be reminded. Sometimes people say, why is our pupil expense as high as it is? Well, we offer a lot, and we value offering a lot, and we want to make sure that that's highlighted in our budget presentation.
I don't know, Sue, Ms. Robinson, do you have any questions? And if no other board questions, it's Cheryl Masterman next.
Okay, I do not have any questions at this time. They've been asked. Thanks.
Okay, Ms. Masterman, you can go.
Thanks. I was just curious, does the natatorium and gymnasium generate any revenue that offsets expenses?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and that's not necessarily reflected in this report, correct?
It's not, but it's reflected in the budget and the revenue side.
Okay. And then the other question I had was regarding the professional learning teacher buddies. Do they get paid?
They do. Yeah, the mentors, they get paid. They have a pretty, and they attend the sessions with the new teachers. So the new teachers go through several sessions throughout the year, and then the mentors get a stipend to support the teachers, and they have a lot to do.
Yeah. Do you know off the top of your head what kind of stipend that is, or does it depend on their grade or their, I don't know. Sorry, my phone rang.
I think it's $4,000 or something like that. It's like $3,000 or $4,000 for
It's for the year, though, right?
For the year. Yeah. They start in August, and they go through the after school sessions through the end of the year.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any
that-
questions?
That's all I have.
Okay. Well, this was a very complete analysis of our curriculum experience, not just the curriculum budget. It included some personnel costs as well as after-school activities. And that was helpful to understand how we are providing an experience for our students. I hope to see you all at the next meeting, which will be, do we know the date yet?
I think that's between you, your co-chair, and Vic will come up with something.
Thank
We
you.
we will. We haven't done it yet, but we will.
Okay, we will publicize that when available.
Correct.
Thank you very much for joining the meeting. We are adjourned.